Hello, friends, and welcome to the Weekend Catch Up Club, the coffee morning show brought to you live every Saturday direct to Facebook and available later on demand at youtube.com/gamertagged and podcast services. Today's special guest is Sam Price from Ubisoft. Sam, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's great that we finally managed to organise this, and I'm really excited to chat video games with you, buddy.
And me too. Yeah, it's something we've been trying to sort out for a while. I'm glad we can finally get to do it.
I know. So, how's lockdown been for you so far? Like, how are things doing, like over there, and not being able to go to the office and everything?
For me personally, it's been it's kind of been pretty good. Just before we got sent to lockdown, I didn't get much time with my daughter, unfortunately, because I was in the office most of the week. So I've basically had all those really nice moments at home, watching her learn to walk, learn to talk, and things. So it's been great for family. Oddly enough, despite all the restrictions, I do miss the office, and I'm looking forward to getting back, hopefully in the near future. But yeah, it's actually not been too bad for me. I can actually say I've rather enjoyed working from home.
Yeah, I'm the same because we were chatting a little bit on Twitter when we were organizing this show. It's like I became a dad in October, so it's fascinating that I think you and I are maybe kind of similar in that lockdown is an inconvenience, and it is disappointing that we don't get to spend time with colleagues and such, and we miss the office and that banter, that camaraderie that you get just by being next to colleagues. But at the same time, the payoff that we've had is that we've never really missed a moment with our kids, and I never miss a smile, I never miss a cuddle from the little guy. He's only 4 months now, and that's such a thing that I would have gotten had it not been for this pandemic and this lockdown. Bittersweet, but silver linings, I guess.
Yeah, I can share that sentiment. I still occasionally just pop downstairs for 5 minutes just to go and see how little one's doing, just have a little cuddle with her, puts a smile on her face.
Yeah.
I think she's grown very accustomed to that life of, dad's always at home. She often knocks on my office door, when I'm in the middle of meetings. It's just like, dad, let me in.
It's like, no, dad has to work. It's like, leave me alone.
Yeah, it's very much like that.
Yeah. So tell everybody, all of our listeners and viewers, who is Sam Price and what does this man do at Ubisoft?
So I am Sam Price. I am a data manager at Ubisoft Reflections. What that encompasses is I am part of a team that deals with infrastructure and productivity software and tool chains. So I work on version control, build systems, developing solutions for issues for end users, amongst a myriad of many, many other things, including Jira administration, writing batch files to do a software installation, and much, much more.
My God, that's a lot of hats you've got on.
Yeah, it's a very Team Fortress-esque role. Many, many, many hats.
Yeah. So how did you get into that role?
It was a bit of an odd change, really. So I'd spent nearly 5.5, 6 years in quality assurance testing, up to and including my time at Reflections, and a colleague of mine who's now my manager just gave me a nudge and said, "We got a position. You should apply." And I didn't think much of it. And then about 4 weeks later, he gave me another nudge. So I thought, I've got nothing to lose. And at that point, I was looking to transition into a new role anyway. So I thought, I'll throw my hat in the ring. I've got nothing to lose. And then lo and behold, literally within 24 hours, I was having my first interview for it. And then 2 weeks later, it was, right, okay, well, let's move this forward.
Yeah.
And then, January of last year, I was officially placed in the role.
That's pretty awesome. Like high speed, but awesome. It's really, like, you hear a lot of the times where recruiters just take like months and months to make a decision when they're trying to do an interview process. So it's reassuring, and it must have been awesome for you to just like get an answer fairly quickly and you're like, okay, this is a great fit. It's working out well. Okay, let's do this kind of thing. So that's awesome.
Yeah. I definitely think what probably helped is the fact I was already internal at that point, and I think it kind of helped lubricate the process a little bit. Not to make it easier in the sense, because I still had to go through the same interview process as all the other candidates, but I think knowing everyone involved and being in the office made it easier for them to maybe make things a little bit quicker, getting that response, getting an answer.
Yeah, I I've been in a similar position in previous jobs as well. It's like you either brought in on a contract basis, and then an opportunity opens up to be longer term permanent staff, and hopefully the relationship is good enough where the decision makers are like, we really don't want to lose this guy, so we need to kind of jump on this quick before they go off to another contract. So it seems like that was a similar situation for you.
Yeah, so I was initially when the offer was made, I was asked if I'd be interested in doing a secondment period first, which would put me in the position of a junior data manager. And I took that on because I thought it's an adjustment period for me. It's a role I haven't done before, and it gave me time to see if I would gel with the team and vice versa. See if I had the skills to actually do the job full time. So that went on for about 6 months, and the relationship with the team just kind of grew from day one, and it just blossomed brilliantly. And I'm pretty sure there was some comments made if I tried to leave, they would find me. So yeah, I very graciously accepted after the secondment and just said, yeah, I'm all in at this point.
Yeah. So how long have you been at Ubisoft now then?
Just over 3.5 years now. I'm coming on 4 this October. So yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like it. It only feels like yesterday I stepped through the front door.
Yeah. Well, last year doesn't count because it was a lockdown
Yeah,
year. So you've only really been 2 and a bit years. That's all.
only a bit.
So Ubisoft Reflections, Ubisoft are a massive company, dozens and dozens of studios all around the world. Some satellite studios, some like major studios working on some incredible IPs. Ubisoft Reflections, where does that kind of fit in the kind of the overall like studio structure? Are they more satellite studio, or are they like one of the bigger kind of bigger entities within Ubisoft?
I'd definitely say we're a bigger entity. It's hard to really give a proper answer to that. I think it's more perspective based on where you are in terms of the
Mm,
studio versus company. But I'd definitely say we're a bigger studio. In terms of the work we do, we're definitely more satellite though. We've co-developed a lot of titles over the years. A lot of notable titles, including some of the Far Cry series, the Crew, Watch Dogs, Division 1 and 2. Obviously, long before that, Reflections was making waves with Driver as its own
yeah.
IP, basically.
Yeah, crikey! There's a series I haven't heard about in quite a while.
Yeah.
Renowned as the hardest opening tutorial level, and I think in any video game ever.
Yeah, I have that feeling as well. I remember playing that as a kid on my PlayStation 1, and I'm pretty sure I never got past that tutorial.
I don't think I did either. I thought, like raging, throwing the controller away, can't do this. Like getting a friend round who has done it and doing it for me, and then I can actually enjoy the game properly. I
Yeah,
think they
I
did
don't
that.
think I got that point. I think the demo disc may have just gone flying at that point for me. I could be wrong.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned a little bit there about like the wealth of IP
Mm.
that Ubisoft Reflections has been, fortunate enough to work on. What kind of stuff have you been working on recently that you can obviously talk about?
So I mean, for me, the most recent stuff has been I've been a part of the Assassin's Creed Splinter Cell VR team that's in development currently, with us as a co-developer. Um, and I kind of joined those projects at a phase when I was transitioning from QA to data management. So I came on as a senior tester for a while, and then I kind of hopped into data management, and now I've been more a data manager to those products than I was a tester. Um, but yeah, before that, it was Division 2 for about 18 months. And then I worked on a
Yeah.
couple of titles with the team that did Grow Up and Grow Home. And
Oh yeah.
we worked on Ode and Atomega. But I came in at the very late stages of those two. That was, I think, maybe the first 6 weeks of my time at Reflections was working on those.
Yeah. So Division 2 is a game that myself and my friends absolutely like love to bits in terms of like moving the cover shooter genre forward and also doing things that are interesting in that kind of live service model space. It's been great to see the sequel really deliver on the promise of, I think, the first one, where it didn't quite hit in some aspects, but Division 2, to see that ongoing support, and also they just announced there's going to be some content and support and different features coming at some point this year, and of course the new consoles getting patched for like full 4K, like doubling the frame rate on consoles. It's been awesome to dive back into that. Do you guys get like an extra kind of, not thrill as such, but like even more kind of motivated to see audiences like coming back to these IPs and these games, and again rediscovering their love for the games when like a big patch comes out or a big update comes out?
I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but I certainly do. News that Division 2 was getting more content and getting an extra lease of life, as it were, was a big. I think it was an uplifting feeling for me. That was a lot of my time at Reflections. A lot of passion was put into that by so many people. A lot of whom are still at the studio. I'm pretty sure they'll share that same sentiment that, it's great to see people enthusiastic and return to the product. It's great to see that it still gets the attention it definitely deserves.
Yeah.
Getting extra content, getting patched for new consoles. Bringing it to more players as well. People who are picking up a PS5 or the new Xbox for the first time. Jumping on Division 2 is it's a nice feeling for me to know that people are still playing that.
Yeah, it's one of those games where it kind of feels like that warm pair of slippers, like comfort gaming, but it's just a lot of fun because it's so easy to pick up and play. Like the mechanics are so well refined that it doesn't matter how long you've been apart from the game. If you've set it down for a few months, you come back to it and it's just easily pick up and play. It's like, yes, back into the Division with the cover shooter tactics and the powers and everything. One of the things that really surprised me about that game was the how they keep adding to the content that in kind of unexpected ways. Like there was one of the updates was it was like this kind of wave based, like a tower, almost like the raid or something like that.
Yeah,
And it was so unexpected. It's like that's actually really cool. I didn't think of that originally as the type of content that would work for the Division, but actually it makes a lot of sense now that you see it and you get your hands on it. And I think they released an infographic showing like how many floors of enemies have been killed, and it was like in the millions. It's just staggering the data that players rack up in these games.
yeah. I took a look at that as well. It doesn't come as much of a surprise to me to see that kind of information. I'd seen some of that, not long after launch, and occasionally little snippets come out via social media of some of the statistics, and it doesn't really surprise me too much. But it's nice to see all the same. You look at how many millions of headshots have been landed. And, you think, well, there are X amount of million players out there, and pretty sure a lot of them are going to be good headshots.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I do agree with the comparison that it's like a warm pair of slippers. I still come back to it from time to time. I've clocked hundreds of hours on my personal account, and I don't know how many thousand on my dev time. But I'll still come back to it.
100%. I need a statistic which is just about spraying and praying. Never mind the headshots. I need like panic fire. That's the stat I need, and then I'll probably rack that up quite highly. But
Yeah, I think that might be a difficult one to track. That you never know.
probably, yeah, like stray bullets maybe is the demographic we could go for. But so something like a Division or a Ghost Recon or like a Rainbow Six, they're obviously like mega titles, and the production is obviously, or needs to be, like spread across like multiple Ubisoft studios, so you're all working collaboratively but also independently on core aspects of the game. In your experience, is that like really really challenging as opposed to having like one big team in one central location all working on stuff, or is it something that you find is actually like a really great way to get like the best talent all kind of bouncing off each other like globally, like around the world?
I think that really comes down to the title in question. Like, if you look at it on a per title basis, I think it would slightly vary. I think it's also more difficult to allocate such resources into a single location. When you're talking about Division, like you said, it's a lot of people, it's a lot of studios. I'd struggle to find anywhere that could really house that kind of development size.
Mm.
Full time. So I think when it comes to working on something like the Division or Ghost Recon, these big dynamic live service games, you do need to work collaborative. You do need to spread the work out. And I think it helps foster good relationships as well between the studios. It's a good way to get to know people across the company and across the world. And there is something to be said for benefits in spreading it out, because you might pick 6 or 7 studios, across the world, and what you might get is that there are people in different time zones, which may introduce a difficulty, towards communication and working. But at the same time, it means that development can be running around the clock in some capacity. So you're always driving the project forward in some way.
Hmm. That's super interesting. Do you think the pandemic has helped to improve the working remotely rather than being within the studio for these kind of communication tools, or do you think it? I guess it could go either way. Really, it's there's positives and there's benefits, I guess.
I don't really think it's altered or improved or degraded any of that stuff. I can say that from my personal perspective, the communication has always been top notch.
Mhm,
We've always had the ability and always do persevere and try and communicate as much as possible. I
mhm.
think it's just adjusted how we do that and the frequency, as opposed to have we made things better or worse in the process. I think we're always pioneering to be the best at what we do, and that includes communication during the production. Um, I just think that it's just another way of achieving the same goal. We're
Yeah.
just doing it from home as opposed to in the office. We're still using the same tools. We might change things ever so slightly, but the goal is still the same.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, 100%. I've kind of been noticing that on with my job as well. It's like it's sometimes difficult, especially in a creative context, to like have those brainstorming sessions, have the like bouncing ideas candidly, like you would maybe do in the office. But there are tools there, like quickly jumping on a Zoom call to bounce an idea off each other and then have like a kind of candid chat. There are ways of getting over it. It's different. It's not the same, but that you are hopefully overcoming that and still achieving like a really great result. But it's strange for that kind of creative collaboration. It's just a different way of doing it, as you said. But it doesn't really it's not really detrimental as such, but it's different.
Yeah, it's definitely different. I mean, seeing people's living rooms, bedrooms, offices, it sort of changes the landscape a bit from the plain old meeting rooms we're used to being in. Getting
Cats
occasional
jumping
visits
over the
from
camera, that kind of
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, cats jumping over the camera. Occasionally, people decide to use face rigger. You'll get people appearing with who knows what kind of avatars on a team call. I'd say in some regards it kind of makes it a little bit more fun and hearty. We've all made the most of the situation and tried to adapt to it. I know people that have done costume play once a week, during last year to make things more fun for the meetings. But yeah, I don't think anything's really changed. I think we've just tried to make the most of the situation and make everyone enjoy it a little bit
Yeah.
to as much as we can.
Yeah, one of the things that I really love about the Ubisoft culture that I've seen from friends that work within Ubisoft that have posted on various social channels is these little care packages that Ubisoft are really good at sending out to their staff. And I thought that's such a lovely little thing. It's like, okay, it's not necessarily like a big monetary gesture or something like that, but it's just this little thing. It's like, you know what, we're thinking of you, we want to make sure you're okay. Here's just a nice little thing to cheer you up, and that really speaks to the culture of Ubisoft. And it comes across on social media, so I can only assume that it is, you know, that's what the culture in within the company is like.
Um, I mean, my personal take on it is, it's lovely. It's a very kind gesture, and it is one of care. And they always strive to make sure we're okay and
Yeah.
we've got what we need. The care packages are a lovely little gift. Like we don't, I never know when I'm getting one half the time, and I'm normally reliant on people telling me, "Hey, we've got something," um, and that normally comes a day or two late when it's sat in my post box. But it's nice when we get one, and I'm just there like, oh, work sent something, and I can only tell when it is from work because the envelope. But it's always a lovely surprise,
Mhm.
and it does put a smile on your face. It really
Yeah.
does, and it is just such a lovely gesture. And our workplace and our human resources teams are going out
Yeah.
their way to make sure we're taken care of and that we're happy and that everyone's okay.
Yeah. It's hugely important that it's like you can't put a figure on the impact that that can have on somebody's like well-being. Is it does make a massive difference just to know that it's like, oh god, that was so nice that they're thinking of us and they're supporting us. And It's just great to see like companies doing that, or hearing that companies are doing that, and just because sometimes you wonder if companies out there are actually doing everything they can to make sure that their staff, their talent is looking after. Because how do you really know on an individual basis, okay, what is the impact mentally on like working from home, this isolation? But I love it. I love hearing when companies do gestures like this, and it's so encouraging to see and to hear. And it's just great to see that Ubisoft is obviously taking the care of their employees like so highly, and it's because you know you guys make the games and you're the bloodline of all of these IPs, and it's just wonderful to see that you're being looked after.
Yeah,
Mm.
it's like I said, it's a lovely gesture, and I know I personally appreciate it. Lockdown's not been easy for a lot of people,
Yeah,
just generally. It's just the nature of it at the minute, but it's nice to see, you know, work really reaching out and saying, "Hey,
yeah,
here's a little something. You're doing well. Yeah, it's hard work, but we appreciate that, and we want to make sure you're okay."
yeah.
Yeah, I'm always happy. I'm always happy with it.
Yeah. How have you managed to like stay motivated and stay creative during this time? Is there anything that you've been like relying on or tapping into to kind of keep upbeat and keep motivated and keep energized?
Um, Oddly, not really. No. I'm generally very passionate about what I do. From day to day. So the passion in itself is the drive to just keep working.
Yeah.
Occasionally I reach out to other people and I'm like, hey, what are you working on today? Occasionally I'll just sort of speak to friends and ask what they're doing. Um, you know, when you work on so many projects as a DM, you lose track of one specific project.
Yeah.
So it's not as linear as it was when I was in QC and you were just on a project, so you knew what was going on. So yeah, I often just check in and just say, what's this doing? What's this person doing? Um, and a lot of the times, they come out with really cool stuff,
Yeah.
and it's those cool little features or changes that I'll be like, okay, yeah, that's awesome. That's a nice little thing to see. And when you see projects move forward in nice little increments and cool little changes, it
Mm.
really reinvigorates the interest of that project and that passion for it. Um, but I mean, for me personally, it's always been passion for making games. Just period is what keeps me going. So I'm always going as much as I can for everything.
Yeah, and that's what I love about the games industry is it's never it never stagnates at all, right? There's always something, whether it's an internal development or something that you've seen from another piece of technology or another game that's come out, and you think, man, it just energizes you. It's the same with the design industry or with marketing in my field. It's like you see a company deliver something and you're thinking, "That's so cool. How did they do that?" And then you go away and investigate it, and it's the creative process just like spiraling and gets your brain thinking, and that's one of the benefits of being in these two fields in particular, because it is problem solving, it is like creativity, and it gets you thinking in a way that you don't really get too bored. I like to try and think. So sometimes there are the menial tasks. Let's be honest, but for the most part, it's just enjoying the creativity. And if there's a new bit of tech, okay, let's try that out and see if we can purpose that for what we need to like add to our achievements and goals. And it's just so cool that the tech industry, the games industry, is always moving forward, and it's there's always something new to learn and to look for and to be inspired by.
Yeah, I completely agree. Both industries are perpetually moving. A former manager that I used to have at a previous company, put it well that the games industry is like a flywheel, and you can be the person that makes a big move on that flywheel, but eventually that inertia is going to wear off, or you can just make incremental small changes and just keep that motion going. And
Mhm.
I think that is a good analogy for the games industry. Is it's just a flywheel of constant little changes being added to it to keep the motion going and keep things moving. Um, I mean, for me, you know, I I am big on technological improvement. If someone says, "Hey, this process is really slow," I'm one of the people that will be like, "Okay, how can I improve that?
Yeah.
Can I cut down a build size by like 20%, 30%? Can I cut down a process by like an hour?" That to me is fun, technical, interesting, and beneficial. There's a return on the investment to that as well. So those are the kind of things I look at in terms of driving interesting little bits for the project, is making people's lives better versus and including my own interest to make things a little bit more snappy, I guess, on a project.
Yeah, yeah. I remember a while back I had it was before I discovered like Photoshop batch processes. This is go back a while, and I had to do this really monotonous task of resizing like Photoshop files, applying some filters and something. But it was the same process across like 100 images, and I'd never discovered like a droplets and batch processes before. And as soon as a colleague told me, it's like, why are you doing that manually? You can just like literally do it once, save it as a batch or as a little droplet, and just drag and drop it to the droplet on your desktop, and it just like does it. And it was a mind blowing moment. I'm thinking, oh my god, it's like the elation at not having to do this menial task, and it could just be automated. And that was a long time ago. But I similar to you, I love it when there's a workflow that we can like really either cut in half or make just little time improvements to it that eases the pain of having to do something that is quite monotonous. So it's such a high when that happens.
Oh, it is definitely. I've had a few of those moments over the years, here and at previous companies, where you just look at something and go, that can be improved, and
Yeah,
then you spend like a day or so when you've got the free time in between other stuff, and you'll be like, hey, look, I've just fixed this, or I've improved this, or I've got rid of this and replaced it with that, and you might shave off an hour a day per person,
yeah,
which we talk in a large scale project, you could be saving, 1,000 hours a week or
that's
more
huge, right? Yeah,
versus the potentially 10 hours you put in to do that. You've probably just saved, like, for a project, depending when you implement it, you could save thousands and thousands.
yeah, and that is massive when you like have milestones that you gotta hit, right? And it's like, okay, what can we streamline here? What can we improve? And okay, that frees us up to do this other task, which is going to take like X a lot of hours, X person power to deliver all of this stuff. Because we really want to focus on this key aspect that we think is going to be really important to the product that we were producing. But this menial stuff is like bogging us down. So improving that frees up time and resource for this other thing over here. As yeah, I totally agree. So the I don't know if we can talk about this, but it's more about the game engines for Ubisoft games, like the Snowdrop engine, because I always talk about like when I'm playing the Division or mostly the Division 2 is how incredibly detailed this game engine can populate the environments, and the way it can seamlessly load in the background, like stitch together these huge like quest lines or whether they be raids or these environments, and they're so detailed and so diverse and so like populated that is genuinely staggering, and it all seems to do it seamlessly without it's just like happening before your eyes. As a gamer, you're just like, I've just gone from street level all the way down to the subway through a museum, and then this huge twisting rabbit warren of level design, and it's an incredibly densely packed environment. You're thinking, how on earth is this working? No, it's just insane. Like how you guys do it. It must be like I have an image in my mind of that GIF of the crazy conspiracy theory guy with the pointers on the wall and
Yeah.
everything, and he's gone like he's had no sleep, and he's just like going crazy trying to explain how all of this stuff connects. That's my opinion of that's clearly that's how it's explained during production meetings.
I mean, I can't go into too much detail, unfortunately, on the
Of course,
engines,
no, that's
but
fine.
but I can share that sentiment. I remember the first one of the first weeks I think I worked on Division 2. I'd never seen any of the Ubisoft engines before, and I got shown Snowdrop, and my first weeks in there were just like, this is wizardry. It seemed like magic. It, it's an incredible engine to work with, and there's a lot that we did do with it, a lot we can do with it, and a lot we did do with it to make the Division 2 possible. We made changes from Division 1 to Division 2
Hmm.
that allowed the engines to do more. Um, we did make changes to facilitate certain things, certain features as well. Some of the stuff I worked on required changes to the engine, but again, I can't give too much away. But yeah, Ubisoft's engines are absolutely stellar to work with
Yeah.
in terms of what they can do. They are absolutely mind-boggling in their complexity, but at the same time, the output is incredible to see.
Mm.
Even during early production, it still it still amazes what you can do with them versus even when you hit launch and you're just like, I can't believe we've done this.
Yeah.
But the engines are incredibly powerful and very well maintained.
Yeah. I mean, you can see it just by whenever the like an update comes out, or for the new consoles like the PlayStation 5 and Series X, to see that. I mean, it was already impressive when it was running at 30 frames per second last gen, and that was 7-year-old hardware, and it looked that good. And then when it got the bump, you're thinking, "Holy crap! It's the scalability and the performance of this game engine, and it looks this good, and it's this densely detailed. It's genuinely staggering." And gotta get, I guess, like gamers super excited for what's possible going into like the next 5 years of engine development, of IP development, of like what we can expect going forward. I'm super excited to see where like everything goes with Ubisoft, because the impressive thing about Ubisoft is the they have obviously so many great games, great IPs, and they always iterate and improve. And the benefits of an improvement in one IP, you can usually see like spilling over into other games, and that they utilize these improvements, these learning. And you don't always see that necessarily with a publisher or company that has a lot of different studios, different games that they're producing. But with Ubisoft, you can really see that learning like benefiting another game, and that's really really cool to see. It's quite a really interesting model that I just find fascinating.
It is, and I think I don't even think it's Ubisoft centric. I mean, we are very good at iterating on what we've done and seeing the benefits and making the changes where necessary. But I think it is and also an industry tactic of take lessons from what you've done, and I'm a big believer in that. If you can look at something and say, well, it worked for this, but for our next project or for this version, we need to do something more. Can we iterate on that? Iteration is the best way to develop something off an existing model, and at the same time, not have to redo the work. Anytime that you can save time and money, but at the end of the day get an equal or better result by iterating, is always beneficial in my opinion. I've seen that from the smallest of things to the biggest of things over the years.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I totally agree with that. So it's just exciting to see where that technology can be used going forward, because obviously the announcement earlier this year is that Ubisoft Massive are going to be working on Star Wars. I mean, that must be such that announcement internally must have been like the child in you must have been like, oh my god, we're getting to work on Star Wars. That is so cool. And don't worry, I fully expect it's nothing can be said about it, and that's totally cool. But I like when I heard that, I thought, holy crap, the Division team are going to be doing a Star Wars game. So then you start like spitballing, oh, what could that look like? Is it mercenary based? Is it like whatever? But just as a fan, you thinking we're getting our hands on the Star Wars license. That must be so cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Star Wars fan through and through. It's a bit of point of contention in our house. My wife's a Trekkie, and I'm more Star Wars. So yeah, you can imagine the fun we have.
Yeah.
But to hear Massive was working on that, I was really excited, and I'm very jealous. Like, I'm not going to lie, I'm very jealous of them. But they are going to do an amazing job with it. The team at Massive are very diligent and great at what they do.
Yeah.
When it comes to it, I fully believe when they ship that, it's going to be an amazing game. I mean, I'll be disappointed if they don't let me play as Jar Jar Binks in some capacity. I'm just saying, I want a Gungan and as a Sith.
Yeah. There's got to be little Easter eggs, like just go nuts with Easter eggs and like bonus characters. There's bound to be a skin or something that will get put in there. It's like, yeah, if you want like bunny ears that look like the Gungan ears from Jar Jar Binks, there's like a wearable hat or something. Or a Jar Jar skin if we're going really dark with it. It could be.
Yeah, like I said, I'll be disappointed if they don't. I'm going to have to prod someone, I think, massive just to make sure that goes in there.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man. The again the potential for that is massive, and it's no pun intended. But it's just great to see that like LucasArts are opening up the doors to want to collaborate with talent, with like the best talent in the industry. Whereas before they were like super restrictive. It was all Lucasfilm Games or LucasArts at the time, and Marvel now are opening up their doors for collaboration with like the best studios in the business to deliver their IPs, and that's great. So it's great to see. Okay, if Ubi Massive are delivering a Star Wars game, then the potential for other studios and of course Ubisoft to get their hands on other Disney IPs to do stuff is so exciting. As a nerd fan, it's like the potential for what can be done is awesome.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see what Massive come out with. I've personally got high expectations for that as a Star Wars fan, but I'll stay calm about it until it comes out, and then we'll see how many hundreds of hours I may pour into it after
It's hard
launch.
not to get hyped, right? It's just like it's
Yeah,
impossible not to get hyped.
absolutely. It's one of the biggest franchises, globally. Star Wars. It is known everywhere, so it's hard not to be excited about that. From the smallest fan to the biggest fan, it's going to be an amazing experience, I think.
Yeah, yeah. So you going back to the beginning of our chat, you mentioned that you could really kind of started in QA. For Do you think that's like a really good way to get into the industry? Of anybody that's thinking about getting started, or obviously worked really really well for you? Is that like the like a really great way to kind of get in, or like what would you recommend or advise? I guess.
So I'm a firm believer as someone who spent about half a decade or more in QA. It is absolutely a great way to get in the industry, and it does need people. Like it needs people who want to be in QA as well. It is absolutely a gateway to the industry, and it's definitely been opened up as that across the world. And I think it is the right way in. QA teaches you some very key skills, and you get a lot of exposure to almost every department in production. Um, if you're talking functionality testing, you're basically working with every team. You're bugging almost every feature, so you get to know everyone in the process,
Mm,
and that really helps to build those relationships in other departments that you may eventually move into. I know the people in the data management team because I worked with them on Division. I think that obviously led to where I am now in some capacity. QA is a very good field to get into.
yeah.
It is also a career field, which often most people don't see it as. Uh, and it does I think need some more people to see it that way as well. I think getting into the industry via QA is definitely a method, but also getting into the industry as QA is also a thing to consider.
Yeah, it was a hugely important role that kind of gets overlooked, and then if something launches that doesn't work as expected, then they get the blame. It seems to be anyway. Where it's like hugely unfair when you guys are reporting the bugs or doing working your asses off to try and fix things, but then like the fallback is like, oh well, clearly QA dropped the ball on this game, and that's why it launched in such a bad state, or whatever. And it's like hugely unfair because most likely it's all been caught and found, and yeah, but that's just like the nature of some games, unfortunately.
Yeah, QA obviously do get a bit of the stick within the industry. You develop a very thick skin to it very quickly. At least I did anyway, and I know a lot of people did. Some people don't, but everyone's different. Um, and you are right. A lot of cases, people are saying, "Oh, you missed this. Your QA team didn't do that." We probably did. In fact, we probably reported the issue once or twice, or maybe X amount of time ago. And it's also about understanding. From a public perspective, I think the industry is very black box.
Mm,
It's hard to, as a consumer, it's hard to try and look in and understand, did QA actually do X, Y, and Z when you don't understand the role of the process. I think a lot of people want to say, oh, I'd be a great QA tester, or I'd love to do QA. and they're very shocked. It's a big culture shock when you come in and it's not what you think.
Mhm.
Everyone looks at it and goes, "Oh, it's just like alpha and beta testing." You come in and you're sat with a bug database, full spreadsheets, two monitors, a debug build, and you've got to run at the same wall for the next 3 hours to try and reproduce something. It's
Yeah.
it's very far from what people think it is.
Yeah, yeah, I can just imagine you're like looking at the matrix for a long period of time. It's like, okay, what happened with that line of code there when I did that, and I can't repeat it, and that must be the most infuriating thing if you did something and you can't repeat it.
Oh yeah, there are absolutely some amazing types of bugs which people love to hate. You only have to check Twitter's game dev hashtag, and before you know it, you could just say one thing like take the recent spate doors in games. Doors in
that's
games are an absolute troll for
that's
for bugs.
trending like crazy at the moment.
It is trending, yes, and I know a few colleagues that have been posting about it as well. And there are certain things you just look at and go, "I'm going to hate this bug. I'm really going to hate it." Not
Yeah.
non-reproducible issues are one of the biggest banes. Trying to do complex like reproductions on your own can also be another. I think there were a couple of times on Division where I was trying to replicate 2, 3, or 4 player co-op issues
Mm.
locally on my own, which it was a challenge to say the least. I'm juggling there with like two keyboards, two controls, and things, and just trying to reproduce an issue with just on my desk. I'm just like, right, I wish I had 3 sets of arms for this.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's always bugs that you love to hate, and it happens. I'm pretty sure I've still got some bugs on a couple of projects internally that haven't been closed yet because they can't be reproduced.
Oh man, that's must be so infuriating. Does the OCD in you just go absolutely crazy for not being able to like check that one off?
Um, it used to.
Okay.
I'd say part of doing QA for a long time is that you develop like a point of no return for some things. Like you'll look at a bug and say, I've got to walk away from this. Like I've got to accept that either I can't reproduce it or I can't get it to happen, or it can't be fixed, or it's
Mhm.
still happening, but it's not my responsibility anymore. Um,
Yeah.
you do develop some of these traits over time, and it does take years to develop, but eventually you get to a point where you say, okay, I've invested time in this. I can't get it to happen. Let's mark that as, can't reproduce, or, pass it to a developer to investigate in more detail.
I mean that must be like one of the hardest things is learning to like walk away from an issue that you can't fix and trust that like other people will pick it up and hopefully get fixed. But even if it doesn't, it's like, okay, well, we just have to let that one like slide kind of thing because it's maybe like super minor, super rare, and then it's like low priority. So we need to focus on like other things, and it can be challenging to get your head around learning to let go of certain things when you want to fix everything and make it perfect as much as you possibly can.
Yeah, it's a difficult skill to learn, and some days I still get caught out. Even as a DM, like I still get caught out. Getting attached to things that I shouldn't. Um, it does happen. To the best and to the newest, it will happen.
Yeah,
And it is.
I sorry.
I was going to say it's a skill that pretty much every developer has to learn at some point. Is you got to know when to walk away from something. You got to know when to walk away from a task or a bug or trying to make an improvement, and maybe let a fresh set of eyes look at it.
Yeah, I do that all the time to my detriment as design lead on a number of projects. I give feedback to other designers in our team, and a lot of the times I get stupidly fixated on like, okay, that object there needs to be further over, or the line spacing on that chunk of text is too spaced out, so it needs to be
Yeah,
fixed. And then you just get tunnel vision and aggravate. It's like, why is that? Why is that lettering way too spaced out? It needs to be further over. It's not aligned with this. It's just, and you get that kind of bogged down tunnel vision, and you're fixating on the wrong things, and it's super difficult to. Okay, step back and say, okay, how is the overall piece coming together? Overall piece looks great. Yes, there's niggly things, but it could go live. It could get published. The campaign could run in the state that it's in, and it looks great. But there's these like perfectionist things. It's like just irk you like crazy sometimes.
yeah, it happens. I still get irked by one or two things every now and again. Not so much because I'm more on in production titles now than release titles, but I look back on some of the stuff I've worked on, and there are still bugs in there that I know are there. It stopped annoying me a while ago. It's one of those things where you just learn to move on and go on to the next thing that's fun and interesting. It's about continuing that drive. It's about moving forward,
Mhm.
putting stuff in the past, let someone else ultimately deal with it. And it may sound like a cop out, but at the end of the day, your time is going to need to be better spent somewhere else in the
Yeah,
industry or on a project. Um, I would say there is only one difference to that is that my time working on generic games, AAA, indie, big and large, that happens. The only time where I found that the niggly bits and the persistence needs to be kept is working in sim development. I was very fortunate to work for Dovetail Games for a couple of years, and they work on simulators, and that's the kind of community and the kind of title where you do want to be attentive and you do want to push to get the little niggly things fixed. It might be as simple as does a button sound correct, or is this shade of red the right color for the side of a plane or a train or something. Those are the moments that you want to hang on to and say, no, we need to fix this because the community will point this out and we need to address that.
yeah. Yeah, I agree. So exciting times ahead for Ubisoft. It's totally seems this. I can't wait for all the big announcements and releases that are going to be rolling out over the next kind of few months. And typically E3 time is like such a wicked time to see. Oh, what are they going to announce? What are they going to roll out for us? But I'm it's just encouraging to hear and to see Ubisoft going it seems from strength to strength, and that community that is so passionate about each of the different games, whether it's Assassin's Creed or For Honor or Rainbow Six Siege or Far Cry. It's great to see how reactive Ubisoft seem to be a lot of the times with the different community engagement teams. It's like if something isn't working, or if the community doesn't like a particular like mechanic or something within the game, then they're really on it to try and have either an answer to a particular issue or to roll out some kind of like balancing solution or whatever the issue may be. You don't often see that level of constant like engagement and relation, like a really good relationship with the community for a lot of developers publishers.
Yeah, community is a very big thing about what we do. I mean, you probably know quite a number of our community people yourself, and I interact with them. A lot of people interact with them. Ultimately, community is a big thing for us because ultimately it's the community that drives the game. Community, the people that buy the game, enjoy it, and want to see more from it. And I personally believe that engaging with the community is probably one of the biggest things about development, before and after launch. When you talk about releasing a game, you've got to have a community presence in advance of getting that out the door. You need to get people hyped to for something to come out, and then you need to carry that through. So I think interacting with the community is big, and it does drive change. If someone says this doesn't feel right, or maybe this balancing isn't right, well, they could well be correct. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a different situation from balancing something on production to putting it in the hands of players. You can do test deployments, but that's still only a minor drop in the ocean compared to what your actual player base is going to say.
Mhm.
So when the community says this doesn't feel right, yeah, we're going to look at it. I know people will say that we probably don't always see what they ask or what they say, but we do. Our community managers are absolutely amazing, and I know quite a few of them, and they are absolutely amazing people, and they will always keep an eye out for commentary and feedback, and drive that back to the project itself.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Sam, thank you for taking the time out today to chat on the Weekend Catch Up Club. For any viewers that maybe have any questions or want to engage with you, where can they get in touch with you?
So you can get in touch with me on Twitter. I'm at UE_priceless. Or if you want to just come and chill with me, I stream on a fairly frequent basis on Facebook Gaming at fb.gg/Banished Guardian.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. If you have enjoyed this show, then do remember to give the page a like and maybe even follow the channel. It obviously helps the show tremendously. Until next time, I'll be back next week with another great guest. But for now, take care and have a great rest of your week. Bye bye.